But there's just so many things that are taking place in Wilmington. I guess my biggest thing is that I get tired of people saying there's nothing taking place in Wilmington or there's nothing to do. And I'm like, that's so not true. Maybe it's about what what you're into, but there's no shortage of events.
Hey yo, G Dash, boy, take your hat off. Fine. This week on Hats Off with G Dash Jones.
Hey, y'all know what it is. Hats off, G Dash Jones. Y'all gotta love your life, y'all. You see what I'm saying? That's how I'm starting off today. I said, gotta love your life, y'all. Hold on. You are watching Hats Off with your boy G Dash Jones. Yes. Thank you. Tuning in. Oh, this episode right here is going to be an amazing. This is one of them weeks we got 2 in a week. So you know this episode of Hats Off is going to be nothing but pure fire, flame, and fuego. That's a fact. Listen, hey, my guest today. Oh, man. If y'all don't know, y'all see? Listen. Miss Traci Currie. How are you?
I'm fine. You are bagging me up.
Yes. Look, just to let the people know, my guest today, in case you don't know who I'm speaking with, I'm talking about a 20-year vet in this poetry game. You see what I'm saying? It's still a spring chicken. You see what I'm saying? I ain't never met a spring chicken and a 20-year vet same time, y'all. That's what I'm talking about, okay? Listen. Also, from a premier lecturer, okay, at University of Michigan. I'm talking about countless programs. She probably could count them. I didn't. Countless programs have been led, local and abroad. Workshops, literally the things that this woman has done with spoken word and people who have been impacted and excited. It's just amazing, as well as, of course, the leader of our local poetry out loud situation, as well as the University of Delaware's Poet-n-Residence for that poetry as activism. That's right, Miss Traci Currie. Ooh, did I catch it all?
I think so.
Yes. I'm excited. Can you tell the people just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I consider this home. So I'm trying to figure out when people ask me that. Okay, maybe I'll say this. I am first generation American. So my family, my parents and siblings were born in Jamaica. I was born in Chicago. We moved around a bit and then moved to Delaware. So I would say I did my high school, junior high years, and like grade school here. And then I left here at the age of 17. And I thought I would never come back, and that's not true. I did whatever I did for some years and then came back 20 plus years back, 20 years later. And I started fresh. So I moved back to Delaware in 2018 and just started something new and different. And it was a humbling, and it's still a humbling experience, but being here has shown me a lot. I'm with family. What else do you want to know? I had 12 guinea pigs when I was a kid, 2 birds. I love water. I love.
So you're
I like.
almost a farmer. Like you had 12 guinea pigs and 2 birds. That's like a mini farmer.
Well, we bought one guinea pig named Pampy and did not know that Pampy was pregnant. And there's a whole history behind guinea pigs and how they, procreate. But
Wow. Okay. So when they say like rabbits, they really mean like guinea pigs. Interesting.
Guinea pigs. I'm into animals and outdoors and nature and stuff like that. So yeah, and had a cat, a wonderful cat named Pepper.
Shouts out to Pepper.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you. So okay. Throughout this journey of you throughout all those things, how did you kind of get into your world of poetry? How did that start for you?
Well, I think I just saw Sweet Franchon come on, so there's she's a part of that story. But I'm gonna say I usually my narrative sounds a lot like at the age of 16 I was a part of some sort of competition. Um, I'm so trying not to look at the comments because I'm looking at family making comments. At the age of 16, I hit the stage. I was in some kind of competition or something. It was set up where you do some sort of talent, and I had a mentor who was just like, you read and you write, and so learn a poem, recite it. And so at that age, I recited the poem that I still do 20 some years later. So that I think is my start of spoken word on stage. And then in that, growing into it, there's phases, right? There are cut up phases. And part of that phase is kind of coming into the teens, going into college, leaving town, coming back. I would always come back, or or during that time, I remember for anybody who has seen that interview with Sweet Franchon, that she was rocking poetry sets during then. And that was a part of my growing up. So, and then the rest is the rest. But that's my
Okay, I got
origin.
a couple moments to back up to. So now, because you started me at the competition when you was already writing and reading the poetry, when you what got you into writing poetry?
I don't know what got me writing into poetry. I know this. I have a father who said, I don't care what you read, just read anything. I mean, to the point where I feel like I shouldn't reveal this. Like he would certain magazines that, he'd be like, these are good articles, right? So whatever it is, whether it's in Playboy or whether it's in whatever the case may be, my father was just like, read. I don't give a damn. And so I think I had the kind of parents who gave me the freedom to just do me. That means that I had journals and I would write. And I don't know if I was writing poetry in it. I just know that I was writing. And I know that I was reading. And I know that I was reading like Intozaki Shange and what like Little Women and certain classics, whatever they consider classics back then. I was just reading a lot of that stuff back then. So I think at some point in the midst of writing in journals, some of them would be stories. And then at some point, I think poetry was in that somewhere between high school. Like, I don't know. I'm not too sure what the origins, because I'm going to end up making this stuff up because memory is funny, But I think part of my memory
Oh, I'm not gonna lie. I love this. I love the fact that even at least in your mind's eye, you kind of tripped into it being poetry. You were just writing, right? It started off. It might have been journaling. It might have been whatever. You was just like you were just reading. If it happened to be poetry, oh well. But I was just reading whatever it was that was in front of me.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. And that probably freed me up from identifying and defining what poetry is. I guess there's a working definition somewhere among the traditionalists. But the great thing is that I've had enough people and had enough ancestors and maternal beings who are just like, look, this poetry is a whole body experience. So, you're going to rock it. So when I hit the stage at 16 with Nikki Giovanni's poem, Ego Tripping, and recognizing that may not have been in certain canons, but that's in the canon. And then you come up into this vesseled body, this brown body, you realize that's poetry. And poetry is just storytelling, very expressive. You rearrange words, dot, 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 dot. So I think it's all poetry. But when I look at the trajectory, I'm gonna make this real quick. When I look at the trajectory all the way to now, poetry isn't just obviously paper and pen, right? We are oralists. So my whole body is a poem. And I think I learned at the age of 16, I suppose.
Woo,
And then classes.
that's a bar. Ew, she said, all right, that was nice. All right. Ooh, okay, it's gonna be one of those. Okay, you're gonna say a bunch of stuff that I wish I would have wrote. Got it. All right. So now I gotta go back to another moment because you mentioned, and then because you said So you did this competition. Were you nervous? What was it like? Do you remember how you felt during that competition, or was it like, we're just doing it?
Um, I was, I was, I was a debutante, and my family. I'm careful in saying this to figure out how I'm shaping this narrative. I think my parents were just like, my child could stand to kind of feminize, be a little bit more whatever, because being a debutante, you wear certain dresses and dot 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 dot. So I think to answer your question is when the competition came, and I didn't know exactly what to do, and my mentor was just kind of like, "This is what you do." It was less about it was actually getting through the whole debutante process, like just get on stage, do what you got to do. um that's all I remember. I'm positive that I was nervous because to
Right.
this day I hit this stage, I'm nervous. Even coming into this interview, when you're in the public light, something else shifts, so there's always an energy of nervousness in it. So I'm almost positive I was freaking out, but I did it. Right.
Absolutely. Well, what I'm hearing is it sounds like you might have been nervous, but you were more nervous about kind of the presentation of the whole everything because of your position in life at that moment. So it's kind of like, how's this going to look? How's this going to come across? Let me make sure I do it the right way, that type of stuff, versus the art being the nerve-wracking part.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I could try and remember those moments, but actually I wish I don't, because that day was past.
That's right. I know that's
Yeah.
right. Okay, so then fast forward, right? Then now, for those of you who don't know, now you highlighted the moments of Sweet Friend Sean. Now, for those of you who are watching this and never and didn't catch that episode, please go back and watch it. It's an amazing episode. But Sweet Friend Sean started doing her thing between here in New York and Philly and kind of creating this world. How did you wind up getting involved in that?
Well, it wasn't a matter of me getting involved. It was me just showing up to the event. So showing up to the poetry sets. And I think I remember there's like my mom actually remembers this more than I do. This is the deep thing, because I was telling Sweet about this. I was like, my mom remembers when Sweet gave me an opportunity to share and feature on stage, and I was like, "Dang," you know. But I think it was one of those moments where I was just trying to figure out and find my voice. And so I would just go and I would sit and if anybody who knows Sweet, she's always creating an atmosphere. She was always creating. That's what I remember. I remember music. I remember atmosphere. I remember brown bodies. and so that's it. I do remember, again, nervousness. Like, I think I've always remembered anytime there was a standing mic and then I had to walk towards it, that there was always nervousness. So that because now everybody's eyes are on you. And I think even though that nervousness still remains, there's a shift where now I remove myself from, and as I've learned in poetry as activism, what is my job on stage? And my job is to offer poetry. And so I think over a period of time, she, in that opportunity at 16, was the beginning for me to figure out and find my voice. I always go to Audre Lorde. I always go to the maternal beings and ancestors about that to find my voice. But now it's not even about your voice. Your job is to create platforms so that other voices can come in. That was not your question. I'm sorry.
But listen, okay, for those of y'all in the back, I encourage you to move closer to the front and grab some of them gems that she just dropped. Just some gems was just sitting around there. She just put on the ground for you. Now, okay, all right, because the way that my brain kind of thinks of this, right? Do you know at the point in time when you kind of start to love this spoken word thing, when you was like, yo, I enjoy this. This might be my thing.
I don't know if it was okay. I don't know for anybody else with pets and stuff, but I've always I learned that for anybody who has a cat, that your cats pick you, you don't pick them. I don't know why I'm going to animals with this, because I would think it's the same thing with the calling, that your calling picks you. I think if I had one of my sisters right here, she would say you actually pick each other. So I don't know if it was a moment of falling in love more than you just kind of gravitate to it, and then you're just kind of like, wow, this is a thing. I do believe back then at some point it was very much so ego. You start liking a thing, you start liking a little bit of the attention, you start seeing the mic, and you're just like, woo. And then and then that's the period of Love Jones, right? So you have Lorenz Tate and Nia Long, and you think you're gonna get somebody when you go into a space. So I think there was something else taking place during then. My love for spoken word happens more so now in these past, I would say, this decade, and probably within the 5 years. There's moments where it comes in and out, in and out. But I would say, if I can remember how memory works, is that it is when I'm in a space um, and something happens, like a word. Oh, I got it. March 21, when I was at the Delaware Art Museum, and Brother Is and just the whole team of people put this together in partnership with University of Delaware. I remember my job was just to MC. My job was just to get poetry out loud on stage. Again, nervous, but I do know that there was a moment when I hit the stage. I looked up at the audience, and the audience looked at me, and I saw my mom, and I saw my aunt, and it was like, well done, good and faithful daughter. This is what you're called to do. And that's when I was just like, let's go. And that's when being in love is being in love, right? So I think I I think there are moments when things like that happen. Or when I see, or at University of Delaware, when we had the Poetry as Activism Festival, and the state winner and the runner up, Joelle Catanor and Mace Hussein, get up on stage, and they're up there as high school students about to graduate, and they hit the stage among all these other veterans, and they're just doing their thing, and they're representing, and they don't realize how they're transforming. They're like shifting the energy in the room, and they're shifting the energy because Mace is just doing her poem, but she's Palestinian, right? And she's Palestinian representing the first state of Delaware in the midst of encampments. And I'm just like, you're just breaking out a poem, just doing your story. But real talk, you're changing the game. And she's not so-called trying to be an activist, but she becomes the thing. That's when I fall in love with poetry.
That was beautiful. That was powerful. I'm here for it. I listen. Shouts out to her for listen. What's her name again?
Mace Hussein. But this is the thing. Joelle did the same thing. Joelle, who dedicates a poem to her father in many ways by the way that she chooses a poem, and so she tells me the story about. I mean, this is her story to tell, so I want to be careful. But she shares a story that makes that poem all the more real, and the audience gets to just be witness to the energy of what she's doing. I don't know. Poetry is like, it's so, I'm so colorful with my language, but I'm not going to do that. Poetry is so effing just dope because you can be political in poetry and still be like, okay, right? Like you can be like, all right with it without people saying, oh my goodness, are you Republican or are you Democrat? You just do what you're going to do and share your poem. And on stage, this is the thing that I love about being a poet on stage, is that no one's interrupting me. Like if I do a debate, they're going to interrupt me and act a fool. But when I'm on stage and I'm the feature, shut it down, right? Because you listening to me. Now, what you want to say to me after I get off stage is another thing. Then we can have a discussion, we can debate. But on stage, that's my moment to like glow and shine and be the vessel. And that's the beauty of having a voice, which is why I always got to go back to like my maternal beings who say, voice yourself. Audre Lorde. Yeah.
Absolutely. When you're on that stage, you get to reclaim your time. That's what it's my time. The shows. Woo.
Exactly.
That I'm here for that powerful thing. Now here's what's interesting to me, right? And I can see it, but I don't know the connection, which is why I gotta ask it. You get into this world of spoken word. You wind up in a career as a career lecturer, right? I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that, I said, wait, what? Like when I say a career lecturer, anytime anytime you're doing a job for over 10 years, it's a career. Like you're there. And I never even knew that was a thing. Like you're like, that's your job. Did spoken word lead to that, or was that just natural as an orator? Like what's happening here?
No, no. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Let me see. Whatever undergrad was, I think, and I was doing poetry then. But I think, to be honest, I moved to Ohio to go to film school, and I'm gonna say it like this, and by the way, my partner in crime, what I call my brother, he is my brother. Uh, we did poetry events together. We would create, and it was a team of us, but we would we would organize these spoken word events. And then I think I had like a group in Ohio. We had our own group. We were called Pure. I can't even remember what Pure stands for. And I hope none of those people actually see this. They'd be like, you're trifling. But we did that in that space. That was during film school, right? The reason why I make that point is because at the end of 3 years and owing like a lot of money, I realized I didn't want to necessarily do film, but I wanted to story tell. And whether I was storytelling through writing or narrative, and then it makes it to film, that's cool, or photographs, it makes it to film, that's cool. So I say that to say I did that. When I finished that part and I didn't know what to do, my family said stay in school. They were like, just stay in school and, rack up that maybe and get another degree. So I stayed in school. And so in the midst of that, that's when I was also teaching. So the way I got myself through school and paid for school was I was teaching classes. I was teaching in African American literature. Here's how this part responds to I think your question, if I can remember your question, is that I'm getting to the very end. I am, to be very transparent, I am with someone. That person lives in Michigan. When I graduate, it was, you can either go here, which is left somewhere else and take a job over here. You can go here, which is sit and figure out what you want to do in your life, or you can go to Michigan. And Michigan had offered me a job, University of Michigan in Flint, right? And so I thought, I'm in something new. Let's try that. And so I went to University of Michigan in Flint. And I have to stress that because most people always think Ann Arbor, and I was like, Flint is alive and well and real. And then they hired me in to teach film. They hired me in to teach a couple of things. And then I think about a year or 2 or 3 later, I created the course Spoken Word. Spoken Word as communication, spoken word as something. I had communication and art. And then that I did for about however many years, all the way from 2007 to the time I left in 2018. And so that's kind of the start of it. And that it's like I grew up as a spoken word artist in various ways, but I grew up in spoken word by living in Flint and going to Detroit all the time. A little bit too much. So
He's going to the D. Let me find. Okay, wait. There's a lot here. Okay, okay. I do want to know because I don't know, and so there's a lot of people that don't know. How does one create a college course? Like, see what you said. This is why I say you created opportunities. You didn't just teach college courses. You created a college course. Okay, how did that happen? You proposed it, like whatever.
yeah, you gotta be there for a little bit of time before you start creating stuff. So I did what I was called to do. I started with film. I started teaching the courses. They were just like, oh, she actually has some background in some other places. So I did. This is how I did. It just hit me. Of course, I know how this happened. I was teaching public speaking. I feel like, Evie's on here, so she probably knows the story, or you came in around this time. Evie's one of my people, one of my with Flint. I was teaching public speaking. It was an amazing course. Like I had the dopest folk up in there. I wish they were on here. It was like Dee Dee, Dave, Mona, who are all like brilliant minds. And at the end of the course, they said, you should do an advanced course. You should do another course, and it's something else, like spoken word. So they were my inception. These three beings said, you should write a course to ... And that's what I did. And I created it. And so that first class kicked off in 2007, I think. And we started with, I believe, 12 people. And I never wanted it to get higher than that. Like, even though it could go up to 15 or 16, you can't do spoken word in a 15 and end with a performance in the public with 20 students. The 12 is a good number. So we did that, and it led to opportunities to work in the juvenile detention center. It led to opportunities to just go to conferences and to write and to perform. And that was, again, you asked me, when did I fall in love? I fell in love with people. Class. Yeah.
Whew. Hold on, wait, okay, hold on. My favorite part about this moment, right, in this story, honestly, outside of the fact that you created the course, is no part of me thought that it started with lecture anyway, right? Like, it started with public speaking. It didn't start with writing. Most people would think that a spoken word workshop would start with writing poetry. No, it actually started with being able to speak and do that, and then that led to the next step. Like,
yeah, spoken word, flip it, words being spoken, and it's performance poetry for the stage. So we can learn the craft of writing poetry. It's getting people to actually share the poetry at a mic in front of people. That's the thing. That's part of the magic, right? So that's the process. So yeah.
Yes. So you always essentially loved the spoken word aspect of it more so than the writing aspect of it.
I love the writing of it because writing is personal. The spoken word part is where you hone who you are publicly. So there is a behind the scenes private Traci, and then there is a show up, turn up Traci, right? I'm a paid expert. So my job is is who wants an introverted and who doesn't like people. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how to finish that sentence. But I'm an extrovert in the
That sounds
sense.
like an artist.
What you say?
I said that sounds like an artist. A lot of us are that way, honestly.
Right, exactly. Right. So but this is the thing. When I am given the assignment to show up and people are in front of me, you got to turn up. You have to show up. When the event is done, though, it's time to go home and shut it down, right? So I think my job is to, and that's because I know I have a lot of energy. Anybody who knows me knows that I have a lot of energy. So that's where that part comes from. I'm losing my words, but I do know that when I'm done, I'm done.
It's because you pour it out on the floor. You give it all,
Right.
and then
Yeah. And that's a lot of energy. Being around you.
Speaking to my soul right now. Speaking to my soul. I like this. All right.
Yeah.
Now, okay. So you've created this world of, you're in Michigan. You created these classes. You're impacting not only people there, but not only people in the college, but kind of outside of that space. And then you not only do you come back to Delaware, you come back or you come to Delaware, and then you create additional programming, right? Like, you created programs here and abroad within this time frame, honestly. But so what was that world like of kind of coming here and creating programming and kind of doing something new, as you said?
I come from a family that likes to plan out. So when I made the very conscious decision, there's some things that took place that led me to leave my position. And so and I say that 2016 was a good start of it because that was election year and that was Trump. And so some things took place. And so that was the start of me saying there needs to be a shift. And so in that, election takes place, 2017 takes place. I have a mentor, a big sister, who told me, give it one more year. Now, I don't know if she's on here, big sis Barbara. she was like, give it one more year. And I did. And then a group of us left. And it was really because we were like the Fab Five for real. And so we dispersed and left the university. And then I came here without a plan. So it was the first time where what I heard just in the air and spiritually, that you're going to do this and you're going to do this without a plan. You don't have to plan your life out anymore. And I didn't. My family, my parents, I had just finished a wonderful relationship, but we kind of shifted that. And so I think I was just kind of like, cords were cut. So it was time to come home. And my parents were like, come home and start new. And so when I came home in 2018, I was very humbled because I thought things would be a lot easier. I thought this is where the ego thing comes in. I thought I was going to come in with my titles because I felt like I was a rock star in Flint. I really did. And I thought that it would carry over into Delaware, and it did not. No matter what energy or how many contacts, like the beginning was just like tough, and it needed to be tough. And I needed to be humbled the way that I was humbled, right? So 2018 came in and I met some people, and then in 2019 when I was in, and I actually started with Christina Cultural Arts Center. So I started working with the babies. So at that point, I'll say this, at University of Michigan Flint, it was a non-traditional campus where all ages across the board, from 16 to my oldest student, and I was a student too. So let me be clear about that. But my oldest student made it very clear. She was 70 something, telling people, So I came here, and when I went to CCAC, I thought it'd be pretty amazing to say I have taught from all the way from infant all the way to whatever age is the oldest. But then I got into that position, and while it was amazing, and while it was wonderful working with beings like Kim Graham and just cool people, Shy, like there's just so many people that were there, I also realized this ain't my ministry. So I think I was in it. I need to learn. I need to kind of get in. And so 2019 came in. I got a position to go abroad, and I grabbed it. And I taught in China during the summer, and I was like, we gonna stay here for a minute. The thing is that when I got back, what was your question, by the way? I just realized.
No, you're answering it because my question was about what was it like doing all these different programs on the comeback. Like you're killing it right now.
I'm not off. So when I got back, there was just a question on what to do next, right? Like what's the next step? And the next step was either go back to China, I suppose, and teach, because there was not
What
many.
year? Well, I'm so sorry. What year did you go to China?
That was 2019 summer. And this is why it's really significant. This is, it was a summer. It was an exchange program with Millsville. I'm going to say the word wrong. Well, I'm going to get off and then remember what it is. But I remember coming back and then thinking, there wasn't many brown folk where I was teaching. So I think I was an anomaly, right? Or something. But I remember this. I was like, okay, you could go back. It was then that honestly I had met Tina Betts, and she provided an opportunity. And that's where the arts work opportunity came, where the Urban Artists Exchange was being built. And she said, here's an opportunity. I need a program in here. And it's going to be a youth apprenticeship program. Can you make this happen? And I was like, I just want to manifest something. So yes, I can. And so in doing that, what we did not know is that COVID would come in. So yep.
I have to ask. I have to do a quick timeout because you were where you were. What time of the year did you come back from China?
Right.
Jesus.
Right. I just realized my girl, Dr. TQG is like, yes, Traci, I thought we talked about this. All right, I'm sorry. I'm having dialogues with the person who's making a comment about China. So I was there like July, I think. July. It was like a 5-week program, 5-6 week program. I got back at the end of the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got back in the summer, still 2019. Life was different. It was still smooth back then. You got back.
I got back at the end of summer. I had a decision to make. It was just like, what are you gonna do? 'Cause I didn't really have any prospects, except to like go back to China and start a life there. And that's when I was meeting different people. I think that was also the year when I met Jonathan Whitney. Like I just met a host of wonderful beings, and one of the beings, Tina Betts. And so that's when that opportunity came. And I think what I did is I signed on in the fall. So I signed on 2019 in the fall to do this position, arts work, urban artist exchange, apprenticeship program. And then little did we know, COVID came in. So when COVID came in, China was out like it done.
Yeah.
We not China anymore, right? But and that becomes important because if anybody remembers and understands the history of it, it came out and Italy was the one to be hit first. Like it was so much information on Italy just being, in terms of how it was hitting people and people were going down. That becomes important to me because that's where my system is. So it was like Italy first and then China. And so between those two, I was like, you gonna keep your ass right here in the United States of America. That's what I. And then the program was starting to be built. And as the program started to build, and we came into 2020, I remember very, very clearly that programs that were outdoor programs, they were shutting down. They were going to Zoom. And I remember Tina saying this to me. She said, "We are not a Zoom program. We are not a program that's going to be on anybody's online. It either happens in person or it doesn't happen at all." And that's when I was like, okay, if I had sleeves, I was like, let's go, right? And it was one of the most challenging, amazing, where I was like, I'm built for this. I'm built for all of this. I got this, right? And
You got some grit to it at that point. It was like, let's get it.
I felt gritty. I was in, I also felt that way because I'm going to say it like this, as I learned even in this poetry as activism program, that people can remove money. People can say there's no money or whatever, but it reminds me that we have a history. And when I say we, I can say humans. But I'm going to say for a moment, when I look at the history of film and the history of publishing and the history of brown and black folk, we do things anyway. We don't need, like, snatch money away. We make magic out of just breathing. So I think I learned that year, we gonna do it anyway. What, COVID? And then my father reminded me, he was just like, all the things that we've been through, and he didn't necessarily put it in this way, but I just wrote a poem that has to do with jumping ship, right? Like all the people who have sacrificed so that you could be here, COVID ain't gonna take us down. It's not. So I think that's the thing that I had in my mind. Yeah.
Okay, right. So you're doing this, right? You're in this world, and pardon me, I'm just plugging in my charger really quick.
Right.
But in this process, but in this process, so you're doing it. COVID comes, right? Now, mind you, and I wasn't going to go here, but I have to go here because this is just way too entertaining. So you're at the stables, you're rocking the UAE. Shouts out to Tish Williams, Jonathan Whitney, to the best, that whole squad.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because Tish is amazing, and she's making it happen at the Urban
Yeah,
Artist.
yeah. So then after that, but like you leave again.
I what?
You leave again. You leave the States again after, like, you've established this program. You kind of built this thing. This thing starts to run, right? Shouts out to everybody who's running it. And then you're like, all right, it's time for my now. And by the way, not only that, you're doing like little, but like even before you stepped away from them, you're doing other things in the community of just creating and being a part of different poetry factions and events and all types of stuff, which is just dope. So what was it like to have to choose to step away again and to leave, actually?
I think people got to know what their season is. So I think I knew what my season was. My job was to start to manifest, to do a thing, and then there were signs And those signs was just like, you've done your job. So at that point, the only way for it to excel and move to the next level is for me to get out of the way so that the next person can come in and do what they're going to do. Tish Williams, right? So that becomes vitally important. In the midst of that, you're saying I was doing other things. So at that time, I was already in poetry. I think I was doing poetry out loud, and I don't know, I was doing stuff. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I was doing.
Well, because remember how I met you? I met you at the juice joint.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Right. At that point, I hit. Oh, of course, you're right. So it's all coming back now. There was like a little crew of us. It was Lanice, Juice Joint, Cheryl Mack, I think Tish, the four of us that met. But there was like a crew of us that were talking about doing a poetry event at the Juice Joint at that point that was at the riverfront. So you're right, that's how we met, because it was a collective of us kind of organizing an event. I think Posy was part of that, Josh. And so the first one happens. Yeah, you know why that's a challenge? Why I'm thinking about that? Because I was a person who was just like, I will not get COVID. I would, not me. And then what happens when that event happened? I remember very clearly. That was when I met you, and I was kind of standing outside and inside and standing in outside. I remember that because I remember the hat I had on, and I was just feeling really tired and exhausted. And I saw you on stage. Yeah, that was my final year at the Urban Artists Exchange. And this becomes vitally important because I saw you on stage. I watched everybody, and then I was like, I got to go home because I'm not feeling good. But I knew, I was like, will you come and speak to the youth apprentices? And you said yes. And then the very next week, I found out that I had COVID, and I was devastated. But the beautiful thing about that devastation is that I acted like the program couldn't. This was the sign. I acted like that program couldn't run without me. And with COVID, you keep your ass home. You stay home, right? And so I stayed home, and I think I had contacted you a million times, and you like, we're good. And Tish and the team was just like, stop contacting us and get better. This is a well-oiled, like, it's good. But that showed me your time is your time. Move out of the way. It will exist with you or without you. So the lesson I've learned is that some people need to know when it's time to leave. Some folk don't know how to leave. But when the time is time, listen. Because that's also how we move forward. That's how we elevate to the next level. And you did that. Like, if they reported back, they were like, it was good, everything worked out, ... And that's when I began to plan, it's time for you to move and leave this job.
oh, okay, right. See now we getting where out. So you leave that job, right? You've impacted everybody. You know what I'm saying? You left a major imprint in these moments, and you choose you go to work abroad again. Like, you go to work, and it's relevant to me because of where you went to work. Like, I was like, wait, what? Like,
so let me make it correct, because you kept on saying abroad, and I was like, where did I go? What that? No, that was. It had been a long time since I'd seen my sister. I was visiting my sister. So I was visiting. I guess it could be work, depending on who you ask.
you work there.
So I spent, I don't know how many weeks there, but I spent some time with her, and I was actually shooting a short, which just finished actually. So that's awesome. So I finished a short film, and so that's what I was doing there. Yes. And then I came back and I started working at the Urban Bike Project, which is hilarious because it's right next door. And then I did that for a little less than a year. And here's the thing about that job is that I learned, like, my activism took place throughout between Urban Artists Exchange, Urban Bike Project. But what I kept on hearing, and this is the thing when we got to learn how to listen, what I kept on hearing and listening to was, you're doing these jobs, but you're not doing your heart's work. Stop picking up jobs where you don't belong. So while the Urban Bike Project was dope, And the executive director is phenomenal. Love Laura. I also know that that wasn't my work, or as you know, my aunt would say, that wasn't your ministry, right? But I had to be there. So when I left, on the day that I left, a friend, Cheryl, had said, will you, I remember this, it was the last day, whatever that day was, and then Cheryl Mack said, will you come to the stage, like, will you perform? And I hadn't performed in a long time. I was just like, okay. And I remember she said, will you come on a Saturday to perform at the Urban Artist Exchange? The amphitheater was up. And I remember going, and I remember looking out at like 4 people: my mama, Cheryl, Chris, Jonathan, Whitney. Like, there's about 4 or 5 people out there, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna treat this like 4 people to 100 people. It doesn't matter. My job is just to do whatever I do. And I got on stage, did the poem, and it's the first time I also had a drummer. I don't know why I'm pointing this way, but I had a drummer who was just kind of like percussionist doing it. And I felt it on the inside. And I was like, oh, snap. I forgot what it was like being on stage. Got off stage. And that's when Tish Williams sent me a message saying you need to apply to the Poetry as Activism program. And so it's like, when you cut your cords, when you leave a job and you listen, doors open wide up, like they wide open. And I think people plan, but that's not how life works, at least not for me. Like I'm in the phase of unknown. I'm walking into the unknown, and the unknown simply says trust. And so when that happened, Tish was the first one to send that to me. And I said to myself, now this is being vulnerable. I said to myself, I'm not applying to University of Delaware because I applied to them before and they rejected me. So I'm good. And then Jonathan Whitney sent it to me. And then I was like, I'm still not applying, whatever.
Ego was beating you up, boy.
I saw it on Tahira's thing. I don't know if it came directly to me or whatever, but I remember I saw it 3, right? 3 times. First time, second time, third time. At that point, I was like, all right, universe, okay, creator. I applied and I got it.
So did you already, so when you walked into this position as the poet in residence, did you already knew what that was? Because that's not the position that you held at the previous school. So did you kind of already have an idea what that meant?
The Poetry as Activism, the residence. I read the script. I read what it would require, which is an opportunity to publish, an opportunity to research, an opportunity to create programs, and an opportunity to bring communities together, which is what I have always done. I think that's the thing. My besties had to remind me. They were just like, this is what you do. So when I applied, it was the first job. And let me just say this, I don't believe in the interview process. I believe that when people interview for these jobs and they put on suits and stuff like that, that it's to me at times. Let me be careful, because watch, I'm gonna have to interview for something, right? And someone's gonna see this, right? But I think sometimes we do this interview and you only know so much about a person. They give you a face. And so that, like, kind of like, I don't believe in necessarily 40-hour weeks. That, like, there's just something about that feels very controlled and constructed, and you're trying to figure out a person. But this job that I applied for, I believed in it. I put everything into it. I was like, this is one application that I'm gonna give them who I am. And if they don't want me, at least I gave them exactly who Traci is, so that they know who they're gonna get. And so when they were like, we want to call you for an interview, and I was interviewing with about 4 people, I was like, oh, snap. And that's when I learned, here's an opportunity for me. This is when I decided to go back to the classroom. So know this, in 2018, I cut my cords with college at university. I was like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I've been doing this for 50 million years, even though I'm not 50 million, right? And then I was like, it's been about 4 or 5 years. I'm ready to go back to the classroom. So at that point, doors opened again. Like, I started being an adjunct, and I was like, all right, I'm just putting my toe in. And then I got the residency. And then I was like, now you're putting 2 toes in, because now you're about to go back into being a researcher. And when I got in there, I was like, oh, you're actually not going to be a researcher. You're going to be an activist. You get to define that. let's go. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now I love how the universe speaks to you. Now, so my question, kind of, even in thinking of like poetry as activism, being in that, if you would have heard that term before you took that role, before you read the things, did the role mean the same as what you would have envisioned that terminology to mean?
I don't think so, because they asked me that in the interview. They asked me like and stuff, and it changed over a period of the semester. So at first in the interview, I made it clear. I was like, my activism is joy. I was clear about saying that, because there were certain books that I was reading about being an activist, and tapping into exploring self and happiness and joy and dot 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 dot. I was, I just finished kind of reading what's the book? uh Rest is Resistance. It's on the tip of my tongue, right? Like, there's just a lot of things like in this brown body and in this brown gendered body that I was just like, my activism is gonna look like this, because I was told years ago that activism looks like this, and I was like, that's not what we're doing. But over what I realized is that poetry is a vehicle for people to do whatever they need to do, to say what they need to say, to share their story on stage. And then that's where the transformation and the magic happens, right? So what I learned is my activism was to create platforms so that people can hit the stage and share their work. That's one. The other part of poetry as activism is that my job was to realize that every time I show up to a space, my job is to be present. I don't think we know how to be present, because we got social media. We're on it. I'm on it way too much. So every time I came into the classroom, move things out of the way. I have a friend. I have one or two people, two or three people in my life who are just like, when we spend time together, they tell me, put your phone away. That's not what we're doing, Traci. So don't you dare pick up that phone and check that. You ain't nobody you need to check. So
Wait, did you mute? There we go.
okay, there you go. All right. So yeah, go ahead and ask me the question again, because I got distracted when the phone started ringing.
No, no. It was literally you were kind of just telling me about how you kind of learn to be more present. The question was about poetry as activism versus the terminology versus the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you kind of answered, because you kind of went into what your version of poetry of activism was, and it was very much so what you and how it's changed throughout the time of being in the position,
Yeah,
which I find very.
yeah. I think the closing part is that it's really about me being present, and being present, which is poetry being present, right? Or telling a story being present. My job, honestly, is when I hit a space, whether I'm there for the function of poetry, that's the tool, is to make sure that I am connected to the humans that are in front of me, right? And so if someone calls me in to be a poet, or calls me in to be a storyteller or an MC or whatever, I have a work to do to read the room, to read the audience, to read everything in that space, and to pivot if I need to. That's a lot of energy. But poetry is just the tool that allows me to do that, which forces me to be present, which is the activism. It's all an equation, right?
Wow. Okay. Very true. It's all a math problem in its own way. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. Oh, this is phenomenal. Again, you are watching Hats Off with G Jones. I have the amazing Dr. Traci Currie here. If you just tuned in, again, please move closer to your screen and then rewind some things, because there are just gems, just random gems, just all around the screen. You got to pick them up, okay? Because it's a lot. This has been a lot. Oh, this is great. Okay. Did you consider yourself an activist ever? Like, did you already? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a activist artivist, right? I think I had heard the artivist some time ago, But I think it was resonating with me over and over again when I would hear Ray, uh, Ray Jones say it. So I'm very much so, I've always been an activist. I just had to figure out what kind of activist I am. Here's the base of it. Take the root word of activism, right? Because ism is just a suffix, but it's act. And I know some people will argue this and be like, Traci, don't do that. But you have to, so it doesn't get complicated, right? Because there's this notion of activism and then intersectionality and then DEI. Like we can do whatever, but it's an act. It's doing. And so I'm a doer. And in doing, my doing are words. So when people tell me something, I'm naive enough to actually believe them, which is really hilarious because I hear people on one side say, it's not about what someone says, it's how they treat you and what they do. Whatever, mug, I'm a poet. So I gotta believe people, right? I have to. So I'm an activist. I
Wow.
do.
Wow. This is amazing. Okay. Now.
Oh, my people are right here.
Oh, yeah. If you don't know, again, that's why I'm telling people to rewind and pick up the gems, because the people who have been here this is why I do this show. Like, literally, this is one of those episodes that make me feel like this is why I do this. Because not only the gems that I'm receiving and the information that I'm receiving, but anybody who is watching this, some of the comments about what people have been poured into and what they're gathering from your story and the messaging of it, it's just amazing. So I applaud all of this. Now, okay, right? So now, outside of this activism space, how did you become affiliated with Poetry Out Loud? Because that's a national program. It's all that, and that has nothing to do with the Poet-in-Residence moment.
Okay. Can I have 2 seconds to do something?
You can have all the seconds.
Okay, but this is really trifling to me. I'm trying to tell a friend to get on Instagram. So I'm just like, so let me I hope everybody is okay with this. I'm trying to get on Instagram. I am doing an interview with G Dash. Thank you for everybody who's just like, okay. All right, now ask me the question again.
Now, when you got into, how did you become affiliated with Poetry Out Loud? Because that has nothing to do with the artivism, activism space.
I went to, when I moved here, I went to a conference and at the Delaware Art Museum. I swear I do a lot at Delaware Art Museum. At the Delaware Art Museum, like I think 2018, 2019. That's when I met Joanne Belinget. And for anybody who knows Joanne Belinget, she is the 16th Poet Laureate of Delaware, right? And so I don't know, I just saw her and I was just like, okay. At the time, the chief officer of Poetry Out Loud and all the other programs was Sheila Ross. I met Sheila through Kim Graham, CCAC. It's like all these people. So the both of them somehow, I don't know how, maybe it was Sheila first, and Sheila knew that I was a poet. She reached out to me and said, would you be interested in judging Poetry Out Loud? I was like, absolutely. And then after that, the next year, she was like, would you be interested in being a teaching artist? I was like, absolutely. And so in the midst of that, I think in the midst of doing that, what happens? Joanne was on her way. She was like, look, I've been doing Poetry Out Loud for like, I don't know, about 17, 18, 19, 20 years. So I felt like they were grooming me. And so in the grooming, I got to this year where she stepped away. I became the state coordinator. And then she went off and did a Fulbright. And then I stepped into the role. And so I had about 3-4 years of learning all these things under Sheila and Joanne. And that's kind of like my start of Poetry Out Loud. Fell in love with it because my activism, being with youth, yeah, that's it.
So now I gotta ask that, right? And shouts out to you've done events in different spaces throughout that Poetry Out Loud. What is that program? Like, what does that look like? Like,
Well, I'm gonna make that announcement tomorrow at the event. Aha! Because I think a lot of people don't realize what Poetry Out Loud is. It's a national program. It always kicks my butt when folk are talking about Poetry Out Loud. They'll be like, "Oh, that little program," and I'm like, "It's not little. It's a national program. It's the 50 states and beyond, and the U.S. territories, where across the board students in every territory and state actually competes for $20,000, $10,000, and $5,000. But it starts on a local level, right? So local level with high school. From high school, it goes to the state. We had our state competition. We had 12 schools, and so that person who represents the state then will go to the nationals. And so my job is to go to nationals as a state coordinator with the person who represents, and that's Mace, who I was talking about. So it's amazing program because my job with a team, this is so not me, but with the team, we travel around the state of Delaware recruiting schools. And thank God that the state of Delaware is not as big as, I don't know, any other state in the
like
United
Michigan,
States.
Ohio.
So yeah, the job is to recruit, and then we go in, and then I get to spend all this time like coaching youth with amazing people like Dana Kinsey and Joanne Blingett. And then again, we partner with all these programs. So we partner with the Delaware Art Museum, and we partner with the Delaware Contemporary. So it's the goal is for students to have an opportunity to share their voice. Yes, to memorize poetry on one end, but to share their own work. That's one step away from being a poet laureate, one step away from publishing your own work, one step away from realizing that poetry is transformational and it'll change the way we see things and move in our bodies, right? That's why I do it.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! Hashtag why we poet. If they don't look, you get me in the mood right now, boy. All right, okay.
This is
Now,
long. Are we like supposed to be done almost?
yes, yes, I promise you, I ain't gonna take too much more of your time, but you just killing it. So what I'm supposed to do? Stop. Listen, you got people inspired right now. I can't control it. Okay. Now, so now you're traveling around. You got this. So with Poetry Out Loud, you're able to kind of deal with the programs. I only have one more question about that.
Okay.
What's that? What's the competition space like in that world? Because poetry in competition is a weird thing.
Oh my gosh. So I think it's also humbling because the competition I know is I came up in Ohio in slam. Like my dissertation focuses on spoken word as a mediated form, but really more importantly that it focuses on and Tracy knows this. There's my person on here is Tracy, who used to go to these events with me, and Yana and all them. But it's slam poetry. That's so different though. Is it? But that's kind of like my upbringing of you hit the stage, you hit the poem, you move with the poem, all of that. Poetry Out Loud is students are studying poetry, already published work. They're reciting it and they're understanding why poetry is poetry. They're understanding the canon of poetry. They're understanding why this poet even wrote this work and in context, why it was relevant back then and how it relates to right now, current times. So the reason why that becomes important is because when I think of, I'm going to go back to Mace for a moment. When Mace picked her poems, and it's Mace's second year as the state winner, when she picked her poem, she was very intentional about picking poems that speak to her culture, being Palestinian, being Muslim, being in her body, being woman, like being all of those things. What we do is we teach youth that not only are you using your voice, but you're also using your voice to speak your story. But you're speaking your story through poems that have already been written. So what you're showing people is that what was relevant 100 years ago is relevant right now. It's all cyclical, all circle, right? You asked me a question. I feel like, competition. All right, so you go to nationals. Whoa, it's wild out there. It's like the wild, wild, not west. It's like it's like seeing 50 million youth hit the stage and take this thing seriously. So you ask me, when do I fall in love with poetry? It's those moments. When I see that I am their, I guess, elder, but I am looking at them and I'm just like, whoa, that's me. That's me on stage. That's me on stage. They're amazing. Poetry's amazing.
Okay. All right. Listen, I ain't gonna take too much of your time because I
Okay.
keep doing this. So I do have one question that I ask all my guests that come on here.
Okay.
If you had to give advice to a younger version of yourself, but
What you
you
do,
know,
yeah.
but the year is still 2024. So when like just Trey, you know what I'm saying? Not Tracy, just Trey, just T. You know what I mean? T carry around the way. You know what I'm saying? Whatever that is, T carry around the way. What advice would you give to that younger version of yourself?
I realize you do ask every one of your people there this question. Should have remembered this. I'll be real. I don't know. I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know what I would tell my younger self. I think because age is a very funny thing to me. And so there is the spiritual younger and then there is the physical younger. And given the fact that I deal with addressing ageism in my writing, I don't think I want to go back to a younger Traci. Like I mean, I know that there's things I probably do differently, but here's the thing: if I do it differently, then I wouldn't be sitting here. So I think what would I tell a younger Traci would be the spiritual Traci, which is the now Traci. And so, um, this is not answering the question, but this is answering the question. At this age, I'm actually probably 2030, right? So at 70 looks like 50. My 84-year-old aunt, who when we were in Savannah last week, and okay, I hope she is definitely not on this call. When we were in Savannah, and I just felt like one or two men were like flirting with her, and I was like, dang, you still got it, right? It dawned on me. I remember sending that picture to a friend, and she was just like, my goodness, your aunt looks like she's 60. One side says, nah, this is what 84 looks like. But the other side says, she's 60. You see the younger self? So the younger self is this. What I would tell me right now is tell people the truth. Stop smiling when shit ain't funny. Tell people the truth. And the reason why I'm going to say tell people the truth is because I prayed for a group of people in my life at this phase, in my life at this age, to tell me the truth. Everyone who was in my life, in my love tribe, ooh, they are some truth tellers. I'm rolling my eyes when I think of how they do. But it only makes me the best version of myself. And the best version of myself isn't good, isn't it? It isn't angelic. It's just me being dope. It's me being like honest. And I spent a lot of years not being honest. So that's what I would tell myself today. Be honest.
I'm gonna tell you. So the part that I don't know if you know that you just did that made that moment so dope. And again, rewind it back if you missed it. But she just you just explained why time is non-existent. Like that. Like you just did that. Like you did that. Like you. Oh. Anyway, that was all right. Be honest, y'all. Be honest with yourself and with other people. That statement reminds me of people who call me and ask me for advice, and then when I say the things, they don't like what I say because it's a little too honest. You know what I'm saying? You know, stuff like, oh man, that was good. That felt good in my spirit. All right, so excuse me. Now, as you know, I do a thing, and I don't know if you've actually ever done this, which is so weird to me because one of the weirdest things about doing this show is that people who might see me do it never gave me a word. I tell people if you give me a word, I give you a poem. So I'm telling you that, and while you think of a word, I'm going to do a quick hat tip to some of the things that have happened recently. Again, a quick hat tip. Blip, blip. I say a quick hat tip. Blip, blip, to some of the things that have happened. Shouts out to the Art Loop in Middletown. Oh, arts by Angelova, Amy Ninchman, K.O. Sims. There's so many artists that were a part of that. Eva Zay had some art up there. It was so much art a part of that Middletown Art Loop. It was just a phenomenal moment. Smash Label was out there. I was able to be around in that art loop and do art-inspired poetry, which just felt great for me. So I just thank all those involved for allowing me to be a part of that, and all those involved for even putting it on. I believe they'll be doing that again in a couple months. So shouts out to the Middletown Art Loop and Arts by Angelova for all the work she put in to make that together. Also, shouts out to the Gift Connect Music Fest. Monday, we were at the Wilmington Library. My man Ty Mathis put together, he organized a kind of a mini music festival for 0 to 3-year-olds. Yes, 0 to 3-year-olds, you heard it. I was hosting, and we did poetry, and there were 6 different principles that we aimed at youth, because they help the babies succeed from the ages of 0 to 3. If you can do those 6 things, it literally helps these children make sure that they don't drop out, make sure they don't go to prison. All these things, from reading, singing, speaking, playing with them, serving it, giving them things and returning it back, kind of doing all of these and counting with them. All those things kind of help. So shouts out to Gift Connect and everybody that was involved, Jay Street, Jahidi, Stella Mengele, all Sam Beard, everybody. So shouts out to them for that. Ladybug Festival, shouts out to the largest all-female festival on the East Coast, or excuse me, in the country, and Gable Music for putting that together. Always gotta give a quick hat tip to them for making that happen. Blip, blip. Also, Naj and Jay had Nataki on. If y'all didn't get to see that episode of Naj and Jay, go and check it out. They're having a whole conversation about, rest in peace DCAD and some of the things that they're doing to help these artists, because Nataki got some great programming that's going to build some of these artists, and Naj and Jay always have great conversations. So shouts out to them. Delaware Music Network's open mic jam session. Oh, Saturday, Wednesday, yesterday, they had my man Jay Notes doing poetry. Mick Shantae was up there. Nina Songbird was up there, and music by Dyad, just keeping it funky. Shouts out to Lamont and everybody a part of that. Bing, bing. Also, there was Araya Love, and I was shocked. There was Araya Love and Chrisette Michelle killed it last Friday. Did a great show. I got to give big shouts out to them, as well as Not Your Average Traditional Jazz Brunch with Darnell Miller at the Delaware Art Museum.
Good. Yeah.
You know it, right? So I just had to take my time out to do a quick hat tip. Oh, also the City Fest, as I was there, so the City Fest, it wasn't at the amphitheater. We did it at a Raj yesterday, but had the phenomenal Melina Moyer doing an amazing job on that, killing it. So shouts out to Melina Moyer and the City Fest summer concert series. Again, that was just a quick hat tip. Blip, blip. I said a quick hat tip. Blip, blip. On hats off. All right. With that said, hey, you got a word for
me? Peace.
Peace. Okay. It's weird that you've never given me a word before, right?
I feel like I've been in spaces where everybody's already screaming a word to you, so I was like, okay. But I want to make sure you heard the word that I said. What did you
say? Peace?
Peace.
Peace, like peace, right?
Whichever one you want. Go for it.
Okay. I got it. Oh, okay. All right. I'm thinking I'm only here to share a piece of me. I hope that I'm able to do it peacefully. I've had too many moments where, in order to find who I was supposed to be, I had to ignore who I really was. I'm lying. I've had too many moments where I've ignored who I really was because I didn't want to expose the other sides of me. See, I'm only here to share a piece of me. What piece could that be? Well, it could be the side that resides in parts of my mind that I'm afraid to let shine, because if I do, it might be too bright, and I'm afraid to make the world go blind. I don't say that to speak arrogantly. Maybe I'm just afraid of the success that could stem from me. But when I say I'm here to share a piece of me, what that means is I'm looking inside the inner version so that you can learn that my life's journey is more than just some random excursion, but this is how I learned that my voice is meant to be. So when I share that piece, well, that piece could be what my vocal cords allow to reach. they'll reach out to your heart and then pull on the strings just enough so that you can feel like it sings. See, I want you to understand what I'm meant to bring. See, I'm here to deliver a piece of me. It's not like a slice, but it's more like if I look at the pie and I had to divide it up just right, I got to give you about 2 or 3 so you can get that proper piece so that you can feel like you got everything, because it's not all about the cheese for me. Nah. I got to give you a piece that says that he's going to fight for the rights, and that might be the pepperoni. I got to give you a piece that feels like it's in the crust of me, that lets you know that I can get a little grit if I need to be. I need to give you the same piece for me that shows you that I can go through life and still smile at you so peacefully. See, I want you to know that when I say it out loud, this is why I poet. Well, it's because that when you hear it, your spirit will show it. And that's when of yourself you will be proud. It's something about how we can maneuver around these adjectives, verbs, and nouns. Do you feel it? It's something that sits inside of the sounds. I need you to hear it right now. And the only way I can do it is if I give you a piece.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
know I had to come with me if you on my show. I couldn't do nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I had to. There's a bar.
That was great. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you. I had to do it now. Okay, I had no choice.
So funny.
Oh,
So, I guess tomorrow.
yeah. Oh, I guess I gotta go hard when I go tomorrow. Listen, I set a bar for anybody who might see me down. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. Oh man, the amazing Traci Currie. Is there anything you want to say to the people before we get up out of here?
If there's anybody who's in Delaware that wants to come to the Art Loop and go to the Delaware Contemporary to hear poetry out loud and to hear someone like throw a word at G Dash so that he could drop another lyric, and all the amazing artists, then by all means come. But no, I have nothing else to say because I've talked a lot and I'm
amazing.
thirsty.
This is one of my favorites. Oh, this was great. Again, thank you to Dr. Traci Currie, aka Miss I Don't Do Interviews, for doing this interview.
You're funny.
Oh, and again, thank you for everybody who was able to tune in. Thank you for tuning in. This has been an amazing episode of Hats Off with G Jones. Again, also I got a shout out to Tuki the Rose because that was my opening song by Love Your Life, called Love Your Life. So shouts out to her. And again, as I always like to say, love yourself first, and everything else will fall in place.
Bye.